Second Nature program is a partnership between the Latin American Youth Center's Art Media House
and the National Park Service.
Since we're in our media house, we do stuff with art media, like creative writing and photography and printmaking.
It's a combo of art and nature.
The theme this year was Civil War to Civil Rights.
And the youth learn about that theme through their visits to the national parks.
Harpersford 2011.
As well as create some form of artwork at the end of it all.
By the end of that summer, they've created an exhibition that is shown in the Art and Media House as well as with the greater Washington, D.C. community.
We kind of give them the insight of what national parks are in their community and how to create art in it and how they are a part of it more than they ever thought.
It's important for the National Park Service to connect with urban youth because as cliched and cheesy as it sounds, they're our future. And urban areas with such a huge population, the national parks that are near those urban areas have a huge demographic to tap into. So if we can tap into the youth urban demographic, then we're setting ourselves up for a better future. An interesting fact is 45% of American children under the age of 5 come from minority groups. So if we're not connecting with that group, then we've lost a huge portion of the population.
Some of the techniques that don't work with youth are when a park ranger is talking at the youth in a lecture type format and going on for 15 to 20 minutes, whereas instead they should maybe have a really brief introduction with a little tidbit of something interesting, maybe 5 minutes tops, like 2 minutes, 5 minutes.
And in 1960, that carousel became the center point of a protest. You guys know Howard University, right?
Yeah.
5 students from Howard University got together with some of the community members, white community members of Glen Echo, and they said, we're going to do something to stop this policy of segregation at Glen Echo Amusement Park.
And then allowing the youth to scatter in the park to discover something on their own or work as a team, and then come back to share with the group what they've learned.
Just to let them go around and take pictures, do sketches, sit down on a bench and write. That was much more impactful than I think I had ever anticipated.
Until like the last, every day until they closed, and then the first day, it helped because it was like the first day of the next summer, they allowed everyone to come into their park.
People memorize more, and people actually know.
They weren't lectured.
They weren't lectured. Like all this information. Usually, when people talk a little bit, information stays. When people talk, in, out. Okay, that's it. That's it.
Using their senses, also engaging them kinesthetically. If you break the youth into 2 teams and making them explore something, but making it be competitive is also really good.
I see it coming out of there. No, I see that one right there. You see that? You see? I don't think you guys, either of them are leaking. So you both did a pretty good job. So we won.
But anything hands-on. We did laundry during one of the visits at Rock Creek. We did laundry the 19th century way.
You take up arms and fight for the freedom of others. If you say yes, you're going to sit on this side. If you say no, you're going to sit on this side.
We've also learned that the techniques of using a debate or asking youth their own opinions also really works well.
Probably one of the most well-loved activities that the youth took part in was our What Would You Change in the World activity. And probably the reason it was most successful is it gave them a chance to express their opinions and express who they are through what they would change.
It's important that rangers think about kind of the capacity of young people and the young people they're serving, realizing this is a summer program, and even though it's a work program, it's the young people's summertime, and so their capacity to take in information.
In terms of learning about the national parks, we want that to be more experiential and not so much school-like. So through recreation, like whitewater rafting or kayaking or biking.
It's important for the park rangers to remember the contexts in which the youth are coming to the national parks. they aren't necessarily going to be experts at hiking around the parks or camping inside the parks. They might not even necessarily be outdoorsy youth. They might be the type of youth that really never get a chance to experience the outdoors on any capacity. So we have to keep that in mind when engaging these youth on site, because that could really affect how your interpretive program is run.
This sounds really basic, but when working with youth or groups, making sure their comfort and where they're placed is paramount. So making sure your group is not facing the sun while you're talking to them, being cognizant if it's really, really hot in the summertime to take breaks, allow them to rest, to rehydrate, and not have it be like a military march wherever you're going.
All you can really think about is like how hot it is and how the sun is like on you and you're like, where is the shade? Also, I don't like bugs. Then I'm worried about if a bug is trying to like attack me. And so those are like two like things you think about. But then you try to get into like what they're talking about and then you're like, it's like too much multitasking type thing.
You have to be flexible, that things change up and they switch all the time and you have to kind of think on your feet, or things don't work and you have to say, you know what, you have to let go of it. Even if you planned it and you put a lot of time into planning it, this isn't working. They aren't understanding it. So what am I as a teacher or an interpreter going to do to make them understand the subject better and make it relevant to them?
I've given programs where I've done all my research and I know what I'm going to talk about, and I talk to them and they don't care. Why? Because they weren't engaged. If you can engage them and talk to them and talk with them, most importantly, that way you have their engagement, and that's a lesson that I've learned just on my own experiences.
Sometimes attention can be gone in a second. You can have a person really interacting and engaging, and then in the next second, they're gone. So I feel like in that respect, it would be best to kind of analyze the group just a little bit more, just to see, okay, I think it's time for a break because energy is a little low, and even if it's a little bit of a 5-minute break or a 10-minute break or just a bunch of mini breaks, because believe it or not, the youth really need those little breaks, and why it may seem just a little off that you have to keep stopping, but it just really means a lot to continue with any type of program you have.
I think it's also just sharing what you're passionate about with young people, because you know, we had a ranger who was really into constellations, and so after a campfire just pointed out to a young person some of the constellations that were up in the sky, and before you know it, there were a group of young people all laying on the grass looking up at the sky, and she's telling them stories about constellations. And you know, it wasn't a planned program, it just happened, and sometimes it's just letting those things happen.
Hola, ¿cómo está? Muy bien. It's going to be dark. I'm not going to kid you. When I used to live out, and I had my family from the Bronx and from Manhattan come over to see me at a park outside, and they didn't, ¿dónde está la luz?